Hello again, computer science students. We just installed Python and Visual Studio Code, and now we're going to make our first program in that. So here's your title, First Python Program in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to switch to I'd like you to actually, hold on here. So go to your folder. So click on the yellow folder at the bottom there. And from there, we're going to make a new folder in our Documents folder. So go to your Documents. And I'd like you to create a new folder here. You can right-click. It doesn't have to be in Documents. It's wherever you feel comfortable making this folder. This is going to be your folder where all your Python programs go. So I'm putting it in Documents. I'm going to make it right-click. Maybe you want to put it in on your desktop, perhaps. Documents is a good spot. Maybe you have an external drive. So right-click, New. Oh, the only thing is, wherever you create this, it has to be in a spot that's always going to be accessible every time that you every time you're using Visual Studio Code. So New folder, and I'm going to call it Python. And that's it. So now we can close this, and we're going to access that from Visual Studio Code. So now I'm going to go to my Visual Studio Code, and from here we're going to go to File and Open Folder. So go to File, Open Folder, double click on the directory you just created, and click on Select Folder. So now everything should reset. You should see it says Welcome Python, Welcome, and then Python. This is the folder that you created. And there's nothing there right now. So we're going to create our first file. So over here, you can hover over this. You'll see it says New File. What else is this? I'm just curious here. New Folder, Refresh Explorer. Yeah, so we're just going to click on New File, and let's call it, because what we're doing right now in Python is lists. We're looking at lists, and we're looking at strings as lists. So I'm going to call this string as list.py. Don't forget the .py extension. Notice that as soon as I did put in the .py extension, it changed to the icon for Python. Press enter. Here's our file, and it looks very similar to what we were using in class. What does it say here? Tip: you can change the Python interpreter by using Python extension, which is fine. We don't need to do that for now. Linter Pylon is not installed. This is what I'd like you to do. Where it says Linter Pylon is not installed, click Install. What a linter is it's something that allows you to, it gives you a lot more hints as you're coding. And I'm actually just going to go to Google and type in what is a linter so I can give you a better, what is a linter? So a linter is a tool that analyzes source code. So we're writing source code. It flags programming errors, bugs, stylistic errors, and suspicious constructs. So basically, it keeps you from doing silly mistakes, and it might also find some errors as you're typing. It's very useful. When we were using Genie, it didn't do that. But that's another reason why I'd really like us to be using Visual Studio Code. Let's see, it said it's successfully installed, so I think that we're okay. And let's start our first program. So this was supposed to be string as lists. So let's make our first string. Let's just call it str equals. So you can type along with me here. Now, I'm going to try to make my font bigger because I'm so used to doing that. Preferences. Do that later on. So str equals, we can put in hello world with an exclamation mark or any string you like. That's valid Python code for showing the string. So we've created a string. It's a variable and it has hello world in it. Python is unlike other programming languages because we don't explicitly tell Python what kind of a variable we're creating. Python kind of infers what kind of variable we want based on the content. So because the content is enclosed in quotes, Python knows that we're trying to create a string. I just happen to call it str. All right, so here's the lesson that was previously posted. It was a very brief one. So print. So there you go. See, as soon as you type in the bracket, it creates the ending bracket, and that's something that Genie didn't do. It's kind of nice. It also tells you all about the command that you're currently on. I'm going to put in, instead of quotes, I'm going to put in our variable name, so str, square braces. It even completes a square brace for us. Now remember, this string that we have has characters in it. It's made up of characters. It's a list of characters. And if I type in 0, it should access the character at location 0 in our string. Now to run it, I haven't used Visual Studio Code for a while. I believe that what we're going to do is we're going to go right over here. It's near see where I'm hovering on, it says run. It's like a bug and a run button. Very telling, because when you run things you often do to get bugs. That's a big part of programming. I'd say that once you actually program some larger pieces of software, you probably spend, honestly, over half of your time, 75% of your time, hunting down bugs and making things work. But when things actually do work, it's definitely worth it. So click on that, and it says run and debug. So I'm going to click on run and debug. I think that's it. And how do we want to run it? Python file. Let's do that. Python file. And there we go. So down at the bottom, it is running. It has some errors. There's a problem, or maybe it isn't. I don't know if it's a problem. But anyway, the output is just the letter H. It's just the letter H. Okay, that's the output of our program. Everything else, hopefully that'll only happen once. Maybe I have an error in my launcher. That might be my own computer. Okay, let's do something different. We're going to use a for loop now, and this is going to be a good, to show every character in the string on a separate line. So I'm going to do for C. C is just a variable that I'm choosing. And as I'm typing here, notice that it's giving me hints as to what to do. So I'm going to say for C in range, bracket, and parameters. I'm just looking here. What is it? So you can have just where it stops, or you can have start, stop, and step. And we've learned that in class. We're just going to be using start and stop. So we're going to do 0, and then here's one way to do it. So we're going to count the number of letters in the string, which is a very inefficient way of doing it. Not very good if the string is changing, but that's how we're going to be doing it right now. And then I'm going to show you a better way in a minute. So HELLO space, that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm going to do 0 to 12. Don't forget the colon at the end. If you press enter, it automatically tabs in. We want that print statement inside of the for loop, so it has to be tabbed in. And instead of a 0 in the square braces, that's the index, so that's where the index goes. We're going to type in the variable that controls the loop. And the variable that controls the loop is C. So let's try running and debugging our program again. Run as a Python file. It's going to show all that nonsense again. But anyway, you can see, oh, it's not too bad. It just shows, for some reason, it shows all this. This is our launcher. But here's where the output starts, where the letter H. And you can see that it prints out every letter of the string, including the spaces and the exclamation marks, because those are characters as well. And then it ends. Okay, here's a more sophisticated way of printing out every character in a string step by step. We're going to be changing 12, and we're going to be using the len command, which I believe we learned in class before March break, len, and in brackets we're going to be typing in what we want to find the length of, str. Python will return the length of the string. I'm just going to pause for a moment to go over something that is a really important concept, and it's the whole idea of the length of a string and the number of values that you can actually access. Let me pull up a different window. Give me a second, just sit tight with me here. Desktop. I'm going to open up my notepad actually, and just so you can see this. So hopefully you can see that. I'm going to make my font a bit bigger, and perhaps in the future I'll be able to I have a camera I can write with, it's just not set up right now. So if I can make my font bigger. Okay, so let's see, can you actually see what I'm doing? Let's see if you can. I believe you can. Yes, you can. Okay. What did I want to say here? So here's str. str has the following characters in it. I'm going to space these out. It might be kind of hard to see, but I'm going to say, so this is str. That's the name of our variable. Value and index. So the value at location 0 is h. The index value is 0. The value at location 1 or index 1 is e, and so forth. So I'm just going to be writing that. Now here's where we run into an issue. So I'm using spaces. Okay. 5 is a space, 6 is w, and so forth. And I'm just going to be spacing that out. And 11 is the exclamation mark. So I want to point out that even though the index value only goes up till 11 on Hello World, the number of values, the number of characters in the string is 12. Okay, so that's a really important note. So I'm just going to type it out so that it's really obvious here. And this is something I'm used to doing from class. Note, the length of the string is always 1 greater than the highest accessible index. And that's because we start counting at 0. With the index. Okay, so that's a really important point. If you can get that point and remember it, it'll help you later on. All right, let's go back to Visual Studio and take a look at our program. So what were we doing here? So when we run this program, we should see that it does the same thing as before. Prints out all the values, but only but using len. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for this video. Bye for now. I'm going to be making another video that goes over some of the work I would like you to do for the upcoming unit. I believe that there's some more to the lesson as well. Okay.